Neurowise is bringing you tonight the subject of connection and FASD.
So yeah, connection is just massive, isn't it, for FASD? I mean, it's massive for everyone. It's kind of so fundamental, and I'm realizing more and more in our work how fundamental it is to me personally as well. But in terms of FASD, what I've realized and what we've realized more recently, I think, is how much connectivity is an issue in FASD. Because in fact, Raja Mukherjee recently named it as a connectivity disorder.
Yeah, you went to the Island conference, didn't you?
Yeah.
Hello, Scott. Hello, Trish. Doing a good job out there. So you allowed Anna to attend, which is very nice of you.
I know. I was very, very honoured. Very honoured.
And is that where you talked about that for the first time? Roger was talking about it in those terms, or have you heard that before?
I've no idea. He may well have been talking about it before, but it was the first time I'd heard him say that.
Yeah.
And
I've not heard it like quite so spelled out like that before. So
no,
not that I was there, but you came back and fed that back to me. So it was really interesting to hear. So I think that's caused us lots of reflections within that kind of theme since then, hasn't it?
Yeah, and just how much the connectivity disorder is on a brain and mind level as well.
Yeah, and how that extrapolates into all those other connections, I think, has been really interesting to explore, or disconnections, as the case may be, which we will go into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that kind of more obvious level of brain disconnection where the wiring literally connects or doesn't connect.
Yeah.
But then on a mind level as well, what that means and what it means in terms of relationships with us and with other people, and the disconnection we might feel as a kind of knock on.
Yeah, I think that will resonate. We're hoping that tonight does resonate, and that we can also look at the positives. I'm not just going to sit here and talk about how disconnected and isolated we all feel, because that wouldn't be a very cheery way to spend your time. But yeah, there's a lot of that we push away, isn't there? And that's really difficult to talk about. So hopefully we can kind of bring that out and talk about that between us and kick off some other conversations with other people, parents and caregivers of or supporters and carers of people with FASD, kids with FASD, and just start noticing things in your own lives, like we've just been noticing it in our lives since we've started thinking of it in that way, really. So shall we start with our first question? We have questions organised. I had to look at them.
I just want to say as well that this is such a massive topic. Obviously, connectivity, connection is just huge. So this is going to be hopefully the first chat on this, but not the last. So the idea is that today we're going to be focusing more
unless it kills us off. Sorry. Hopefully we won't stop talking after this. No.
I can't imagine it really. No. So yeah, the focus on more systemic connection, more like there's that level and disconnection.
Yeah, I think more and more we're embedding in our training and discussions with professionals and caregivers across the board, really. You just can't talk about FASD without talking about systemic stigma and shame. So we will be touching on that in regard to this as well tonight, because you just can't. It's like talking about Dr. Dolittle without the animals, isn't it? You know, you've got one has to go with the other. So they're all interwoven.
Yeah, and what fascinates me with FASD on that level is why it is so stigmatized and so avoided. Because people talk about that a lot, don't they? Why it's so hidden, there's so much denial. I remember I wrote a blog a number of years ago that was on denial, and it was the most engaged with thing that I've written. It was like people were really resonating with it and really. Yeah, it's a big thing, that denial.
Definitely.
But since then, my psychotherapy training has opened my eyes to a whole world of why we deny things, why we avoid things on an emotional level, and how that works. And so now I'm just feel much more aware of the avoidance of it on that emotional level. So it's an uncomfortable truth, isn't it? It's a really uncomfortable thing for people to acknowledge. And it feels like,
isn't it? It's a kind of permanent state of discomfort, really, which nobody wants to be in, do they? If I could choose comfort, I think I would really. That would be great. You know, escapism is quite attractive on a daily basis.
It is. It really is. It really is. Yeah, absolutely. However,
we're not
I've realised as well how good it is to feel the discomfort. I really genuinely now understand how feeling the discomfort and doing it anyway is so key. You know that thing about feel the fear and do it anyway, that cheesy but very, very wise Susan Jeffers quote. Feel the fear and do it anyway, feel the discomfort and do it anyway is really made a difference to me in my life. I think I used to be much more avoidant of things that were uncomfortable. And now I sort of feel much more able to kind of feel it and do it anyway. Literally that. Feel the discomfort of various things and sort of the awkwardness or the not wanting to do something or the of anxiety essentially often, and then sort of do it and just not let that mean that I avoid doing things that I want to do. Or make connections as we're on connection. It's so easy to disconnect, isn't it? And I feel like we disconnect all the time in micro kind of ways. And that's often because of that uncomfortable feeling where we just withdraw and avoid because it feels uncomfortable. And it helps me to connect actually by feeling those feelings and carrying on and not letting it. I'm not saying that I don't massively withdraw a lot as well, and like you say, look for escapist stuff, because who wants to feel uncomfortable all the time? Not me. But
I did have a cheeky dairy milk today. Anna knows I've had a bit of a rough day, so there was a cheeky nap and a dairy milk that came into it. That was a bit of recovery time. Recovery, withdrawal and escapism all in one. I was just scrolling through some crap on YouTube. Always good for that kind of thing, isn't it?
But I think that's really important as well, isn't it? That checking out thing and comfort and distraction and all those things. They're totally needed as well. They can't always be. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Head on with reality. I feel like reality is head on quite a lot of the time. Right, are we going to do question? Hold on, which one here? Oh gosh, oh yeah, so there's stuff here about systemic and societal avoidance. We've touched on a little bit. So yeah, I guess the belonging stuff. Yeah, the big stuff really about avoidance and blame and shame and stigma. What did we want to say about that? How big do we think that is? Is it very big, as in the Alps, or is it just slightly big, as in Ben Nevis?
Right. I think it's Alps level. I think what's bigger than the Alps? I don't know about mountains at all.
Everest. But I climbed it recently. Just the other week, I was up Everest, and I'm telling you now,
you've got a bit of childcare there, Beck.
Got a bit of respite. Got the direct payment carer in and went up Everest for the day. You know how it is. I think So just to contextualise, I suppose it's not a question. We are going to ask some questions, but just to really contextualise that what we've been reflecting on, and I've been doing a lot with my research around reading around stigma and shame and how integral it is to everything in this area, really. from the language we use in FASD, which is complicated and laden with lots of assumptions and things about that child's life story and that birth parent. And so there's all those kind of complexities around language and stigma and shame, but lots of feelings that are associated with stigma and shame that are connected to not feeling connected, that are connected to isolation. And I think we talked a bit about Brené Brown, and she talks about how shame isolates, and shame is about making you feel that you're the only one in the whole world that experiences this thing. Whereas when we're delivering training, we try and talk about, is it Kristen or Kirsten Neff with the self-compassion model around, the first step is, this is hard. And then the second step is, everyone feels this way sometimes, you're not alone. And I think those kind of messages are really distant from us in places and spaces with FASD, because we find ourselves marginalized, disenfranchised, without a voice, and left in a place where you don't feel that many people are going to understand your set of circumstances or resonate with it or empathize with it. Yeah,
completely. Yeah, it's such an extreme condition quite often. Obviously it's a spectrum, different degrees, but certainly when it's recognized, it's usually quite an extreme and very challenging condition with kind of a lot of difference. And somebody on one of our programs said this recently about the difference of it and how that kind of has a knock-on effect. So and somebody else called it something else. Mm-hmm. It's so different and it's so out of the norm in lots of ways, that people can find it makes them, caregivers can find it makes them feel like they're different as well. The sort of knock-on of that, it kind of gets stigmatized in that way, I think, as well, because there's other neurodivergent conditions that people see as kind of more acceptable. Yes. And there's also things like attachment and trauma that feel like they're more acceptable, more the norm, more something that gives you a sense of belonging. So if you have FASD identified, it can mean that you feel less likely belonging to any pack, that you're kind of a square peg in a round hole, that it sort of marks you out as different as well as a caregiver. So it's like, for me, and I'm interested to know for you as well, like, how do you get that feeling of belonging and validation despite that? And one of the things for me is our work means that, just in terms of that isolation thing as well, feeling like you're not part of the pack of different packs. It's that thing of meeting loads of people in such a similar circumstance.
Yeah,
loads of brilliant, competent, intelligent, just amazing people that just happen to have come across this experience as well. So that makes me feel sort of more validated in terms of, like, there's just so many of us. We're not alone. We literally aren't. We're all out there. We're just not visible.
Yeah.
And that's the thing as well, isn't it? Hello, here we are being visible. Hello, because it's that thing of wanting to be seen and heard in it as well.
Yeah. I think for me, it really is about the big picture stuff. Helps me to feel that I can contextualize our experiences in it. Like, it just makes me feel, of course you do. Like, of course you feel that way. Of course, like, I feel more like I can rationalize, or is that the right word? Like, the feelings I have make sense within the wider context of a condition that isn't talked about, that people feel so uncomfortable talking about that they want to avoid it at all costs. And that if you do start talking about it, you really are sticking your head above the parapet in some contexts as well. So I think when I feel that, okay, it's not me, you know what I mean? I feel I cannot internalize that anymore, because I have a way of externalizing that. I have a way of saying there are structures, there are mechanisms, there are powers, there are dynamics at play here that are way bigger than me and my family, and we're just a part of it. And some of those are failing us, and some of those are really actively pushing against us and what we need. So I think when I understand it in that way, I feel a bit more connected to my own sense of like confidence and assertiveness, and no, this is our experience and it is valid and we do have a voice, because I feel like I'm not failing in that regard. I think it just counters that narrative of like, oh God, it's me and I must be really rubbish at this, you know. I think that can really help.
Yeah, and that's just so fundamental as well, isn't it? And that is what helps in the work from the work as well for me, is seeing how common that is for people to turn it on themselves and go, it's something I'm doing. And then, to counter that with this knowledge that
to
actually
make it like very individual. Our whole society makes everything individual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of used to that frame, but then to turn it on its head and make it more about the wider picture, I think is helpful. Well, to me anyway.
For me too. And I'm interested as well, going back to that thing of why it's so stigmatized and avoided. I mean, there's loads of elements to that, aren't there? Like, we haven't got time to cover them all, have we? Finance being a big one, but the thing of it being a personal issue is such a thing for me as well. As soon as you start talking about it, you can see people like, oh, things are dropping. They're kind of, oh, what about me? What about my mum? What about family members or friends or whatever? It's personal, isn't it? And I think that, again, there's that real discomfort.
Isn't it?
Well, yeah, completely.
That's, as a feminist, I believe that to be the truth today as it was back in the 70s. And all those movements, sorry, I interrupted you there, Anna, but I think this is the problem now we have with everything being so individualised, is that we owe a debt to the disabled people's movement for all the hard graft they put in bringing about the social model of disability, in challenging the powers, in challenging those mechanisms, in challenging ableism. But in some ways, I do think there's a debate, isn't it? Is FASD neurodivergence or neurodisability, or is it both? And I'm interested in that debate, not just for the semantics of it, but for the power behind it, that either links you to a movement of people that have already challenged a lot of these things, guys, and it can be really helpful to be linked into that. Like disabled people they know these games they're playing. They know the influence that these powers have, and they know what it is like to be systemically oppressed, and they know what it's like to be disenfranchised and marginalized, and how to grab some of that power back. But by saying that, oh, we're not using that word of disability, or we don't want to think of it as a disability, and I completely get that a lot of people might think, oh, I don't want to think of my child as disabled, and what does that mean for them? What does that mean for their future in their life? But because of that kind of disassociation with that movement and that group of people, and those experiences, knowledge, wisdom, and hard-earned rights, we're kind of losing out, I think, in lots of ways, to be able to say, I'm really fine to say my child is neurologically disabled. My child is disabled, because I think that states very clearly what her needs are within that context, and also links her in with the social model of disability, the psychosocial model as well, of it being about social barriers as well as her own individualized impairments and difficulties. I think when we don't look at this in the context of disability, we are missing out, really. And there is that inherent ableism. It's like the last bastion of oppression, not the last, but it's a big one that's holding fast, because we don't want to look at it, because we don't want to look at our biases around that, because we don't want to think, I've got an issue with that word, with that whole idea of being disabled, of having something inherently wrong, with you. So I think that that's something that, as far as I can, as an able-bodied person, I feel really strongly about. And I think it would be really great you know, we have lots of individual acts in this country, which I would really, and I have spoken to disabled people about in who are actively involved in disabled people's leadership and advocacy in the community and nationally. And their view of these individual acts that we have is that it's not helpful to the movement as a whole. It doesn't bring about coherent responses when we base things just on our diagnoses, on our specific condition. We're not coming together to bring about change, and that's the worry I have in that thing.
Yeah, and it's so easy to lose sight of that. Despite having that perspective a lot more in the past myself, because it's so not society's perspective, it's really hard to kind of lose sight of that. And also when you're talking about it, it's about for me, yeah, I would definitely refer to disability as well. And then with that, it's about acknowledging and accepting the reality, which I would rather do rather than kind of live in denial, essentially, and kind of pretend. Because also in the early days, with my son, before we really came to terms with it, and we came to terms with it quite early on. Well, we didn't come to terms with it, but we acknowledged FASD quite early on. But there was that thing of like trying to be normal. As much as possible, trying to be normal. And
you go to the birthday parties and expect him to like join in with the games.
Honestly, the pain of that, the pain of the stress of trying desperately to fit in and be normal. Like, for example, those kind of what do you call them? Those play group things when they're toddlers. You know, where activity groups, where you all sit round, and my son would be off in the corner. You know, you'd all be sitting around nicely, and it's all very nice, isn't it?
Were you doing small talk? Because can you imagine me doing small talk at the Nun and Baby group?
You see, I don't mind that.
Really?
I really want.
I was genuinely awful anyway. I couldn't function as a normal person anyway. Whatever that is.
You see, I quite like a bit of that.
Plan? What's your life plan? What are you doing with your career? What are your goals and aspirations? Yeah, it didn't work. No. But carry on with you trying to bless him, take him along, and
well,
do you know what? I feel a little bit like that's where we're at with Rainbows, who have been absolutely amazing for us. But I do query whether I'm just desperately trying to fit in with her doing activities like that. It's just got so hard. It's got increasingly hard. I think that's the kind of normalization, isn't it? That you will start something and it will progress, where they will become really used to it, and their needs will be met, and they'll settle down, and it'll all be really lovely. And things will get easier, and that does not happen. Like, this doesn't happen.
That linear trajectory that we all expect, that we all sort of conditioned into. That's the normal kind of linear. It just doesn't happen at all, does it? So those kind of groups where there'd be that real sort of normative pressure actually to all sit around in it, and quite perfectionist and quite like, oh, isn't it all lovely? My son would be off in the corner, literally stacking chairs, or rather trying to stack chairs.
Did they want their chairs stacking? Because that's a really useful thing. Good lad, helping them out with their chair stacking.
Or he'd be like fiddling with the radiator or something, you know, like really random.
Yeah.
And I'd be sort of with that strain of kind of, come and sit down, really wanting him to sit down and wanting him to sit still as well. That pressure to just please just sit and do the actions.
Like your normal pet, you're not normal. You know, the flow of your parenting, I can't think of a better way, is that it's interrupted then, because then you're really worried about what other people think, and you really are trying to fit in. The pressure's massive, and then I default to some other person that isn't my usual self, and then I really regret it later, because I'm like, oh, I don't think I handled that very well for her sake, you know, and mine.
What do you mean by defaulting to some other person?
Well, just becoming that kind of more so say like the other week when we didn't have a great time at Rainbows and it was really hard and it's nobody's fault really at all, was more towards a kind of parenting where I felt I looked like I was doing something about her behavior, you know?
Mm,
So like stop that. That's not okay. You know, she
mm,
has no idea what I was saying or in that moment what I'm angry about or what I've done or about it, like the implications and making her, and then when we left, I thought, oh gosh, I don't know why I even bothered with any of that. Like, it didn't matter to her, didn't make any difference to how I felt. It was just a
you're
show, really.
performing to try and fit
Yeah,
in and
yeah,
and
yeah.
please people and stuff. Yeah. Which is my default anyway. So I had to really go on a journey with that because, that's totally a massive thing for me anyway. Um,
But you want
so
to
yeah,
belong, you want to connect,
I
you want
want
to
to
fit
belong and
in.
connect. Absolutely. And yeah, loads of stories of that and people being quite like the disconnection with the other parents as well, usually mums. Like I remember them kind of commenting on my son, kind of going, oh, he's got lots of, the most polite one was he's got lots of energy, hasn't he?
The busy person.
Yeah.
Was he a busy little person? Is he
It's a
busy?
little
That's what
bit
then we get called busy, isn't she? She's very busy. Tell me she's
busy.
busy.
Yeah. Or always a whirlwind, isn't he? Or one time, oh, he's all over the place, which I was like, that's overstepping the line a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then over the years, like when he was a little bit older than that, I remember the first time I went to a friend down the road, a new friend, a mum friend that I just made. And actually
Oh,
she
made
had,
a mum friend. Look at
well,
you
yeah, well, I made
connecting
quite a lot of mum
socially.
friends in the early days. That's the thing. That's what I wanted to do. And I quite enjoyed it. Like we just moved to this new house and we were like
Did you go
wanting
out for
to
cake?
establish stuff.
Did you have cake for the holiday?
Probably. Yeah, and went and like met people at the groups and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely wanted to do that and wanted to be part of the pack in that way, obviously, like we all do.
Yeah.
Because I'm quite sociable as well, I'm not without anxiety socially, but like,
Mhm.
I wanted to sort of make those connections. And yeah, I remember with this new mum friend going to her house down the road, and she had an adopted child as well who uh, has since got some diagnoses, not of FASD, of course. But
Mm.
anyway, she, I remember, um, obviously, my son just couldn't cope with the whole thing of the transitions and the sensory thing and the new environment and the new people or whatever. And at one point, I picked him up just before we left, and he hit me across the face. And I remember he must have only been about 2 at the time or something like that. And I was just the shame, just like that feeling, that horrible feeling, but also the kind of the shock, because it was early days of that,
Mhm.
like still trying to be normal, still trying,
Mhm.
denying the reality or not knowing the reality properly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then just like that horrible, horrible feeling of like, what is she going to think? Um, and just the shock, and then the kind of rage at him as well for doing that,
Mhm.
and for the
Mhm.
sort of shame, the whole shame cascade was just horrible. And I don't have that so much anymore. I mean, really, I do obviously sometimes still, but it was partly to do with that thing of trying to fit in, trying to be normal,
Yeah.
trying to be
Yeah.
perfect.
I think there's a real benefit to. I'm wondering if what we're saying is basically denial and disconnection on this side, and then acceptance and connection on this side. I know that might be oversimplifying things, but I think what's helped us in lots of ways, and I still, like I'm saying, I'm like still kind of playing with what does that look like for us in our lives, because it changes as they grow and as we grow and as we as a family evolve and develop and have different needs. But what is acceptance? What does acceptance look like? And it might be different going forward in September onwards with schooling and things and clubs and what I think she needs as to what I thought last year she needs, or acceptance of what she needs looks like. I think I've always felt that, oh, she needs to be exposed to other neurotypical children because she doesn't get a lot of that in her life, and it's really nice for her to be in different environments. But she plays better with other kids with extra needs, and she's got her first ever friend now. And we had her first ever play date with her first ever friend, and I was quite anxious about it because other play dates and things have not gone very well in our home for lots of different reasons and out and about. And I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? And I was really upfront with the mum. I think that really helps with the acceptance. Is this is what
Yeah.
we like. This is our home. This is where it's best for us to play. This is what we'll be doing, and just put out that whole agenda really straightforward. I think that can really help to self-advocate, and then the rest of the acceptance being you take us as we are, and it might not last very long, this play date, but we'll give it a go, and it worked out. It worked out better than I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
And ideally, it won't be long as well. Like we always put big limits on the timing of play dates for that reason. And then,
Yeah.
but like you say, it's being direct about that and sort of honest. The honesty, being able to be more honest with people, and there's limits to it, aren't there? And there's all kinds of complexities to that. But a basic level of, like
This
you're
is what
talking
we can
about.
do and what we can't
Mm.
do. It's also your limits, isn't it, of what you can contain and hold and where you're at that day, and and where you
Oh, it'd
like
be nice to
we
recognise those back. How do you do that?
how do I do that? Recognize my limits
I'm just
today.
joking because I find that particularly difficult, I think.
Yeah. No, I think it's different on different days. I think the thing about those kind of setting up social opportunities for the kids is about your needs as much as it is for theirs. Because I also like we haven't talked about belonging in terms of our social lives and our support networks and our sense of belonging and connection in that regard, but that dissipates massively, doesn't it? That's disconnected and affected by supporting a child with FASD.
You know what? I feel like I've been on a real journey with that. Because I
I
felt
thought you
very
were going to
much.
say then, because you gave me this look, I thought you were going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Mine's fine and it's great, and I've got like all the same friends I used to have. Okay.
Do you know what? No, but maybe I'm a bit defensive about this as well because I have such a sort of resistance um to that idea and avoidance of that idea, I suppose. But also, I did feel like that for some time. I felt sort of disconnected from people and quite resentful
Mm,
about people not being able to connect with it in different ways. But I do feel like loads more connected on a positive. I
mm,
feel loads more connected in, I don't know, the last couple of years or something. It's hard to put a figure on it, but like, and it's partly through going through a therapeutic journey, and it's about um understanding myself more, being able to express and sort of process grief was a massive part of that as well.
mm,
And go through a sort of expression and processing of the loss and grief in the journey. And then understanding myself more in terms of my anxieties, but also in terms of my defenses and how I defend myself. And then through that, lowering those a bit has helped me to connect more with people. I think through being able to be more vulnerable,
mm.
which is really difficult. And for a while, I was like, really wrestling with that whole idea of like being more vulnerable and therefore sort of feeling more exposed and more like, oh, I don't know, it's a hard one, isn't it? And then what if people just then hurt you in that?
There's
But
two things.
actually,
Oh, go on. Sorry, go
sorry.
on.
But yeah, but it's finding a way of being able to be vulnerable and open, but in a kind of connected way. So you're
Yeah.
still connecting with yourself in
Yeah.
that. Okay, I've got a question for you then.
Yes. Give me a
Think
question.
why do you think you have identified and engaged with FASD? Because so many people don't. So many adopters, obviously, don't, and also just generally people don't. So why have you?
I think I didn't initially. I definitely think I've been in that journey you described about the denial to start off with, because that's the grief process, which we do need to do another one of these about, because I think these really tie in to each other, the grief and loss thing. So if you look at Kubler-Ross, the kind of formative traditional grief theory a lot of people look at, the first stage is denial. Um, we don't go through these things in stages, they're not linear. Grief doesn't really follow a pie chart or a graph, but uh, definitely when we were lucky enough to have been told by the medical advisor that FASD was highly likely and alcohol had been consumed in utero, I genuinely was in a state of denial, because I think I kind of focused on the drugs use, not the alcohol use. I think I thought I knew what FASD was, but I didn't. And I think you're in love, aren't you? I just can't underestimate, and none of us can. Anyone that's been in love, you can't underestimate the power of that chemical, toxic, brain inhibiting mix that occurs when you're in love and you want to go and get your child and bring them home no matter what. You're on a mission. I was on a mission to do that. So you could have told me that she's like, I don't know, like wicked green, and that she has superpowers that aren't necessarily useful. And I would have been like, yeah, great, we love green skin color here. So I just would have accepted anything at that point, and just overlooked anything, like you do when you're in love with the person. You overlook a lot, don't you? Because that's the way nature works, because you have to overlook a lot to fall in love and to
There's a kind
make
of
it last.
idealizing element.
Yeah, obviously not with me, because you don't have to overlook anything, because I'm already ideal and there's nothing to overlook. I'm sure my husband would agree with that statement. So yeah, I think there was the denial, and then I think I would like to say gradually, but I don't think so, because she came home in lockdown. There was nothing gradual about it. I was presented with the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was facing. And this was something very different to what I had expected. And I needed to get skilled up, and I needed to understand, because I'm a big believer that knowledge is power. So I felt disempowered and out of control. And I definitely, desperately needed to rectify that situation. In my mind, that is not a situation that's tenable, like in terms of uncomfortable feelings and the vulnerability of, and I think we do need to kind of make that connection. The vulnerability is at the heart of authentic connection. But I love what you just said about it's that connection with yourself and that authenticity with yourself, to kind of set your boundaries, your self-respect, and your dignity, and then share your vulnerability from that, because I'm only really learning that, and that can be a really difficult path to tread and take a lot of experience and kind of trying it out, really. But in
And
terms
I'm only
of,
really learning it too. It's like
yeah,
quite a recent thing. Sorry, carry on.
it's a good thing. I think it's a really good way of framing it. But in terms of acceptance of the FASD, I guess that just had to come hand in hand with what I, I definitely, there was still the denial that I was going to fix this. I think there was part of that as I launched into things. So I was going to fix this. I remember thinking to myself, what we'll do is we'll go for all the medical appointments, and then after a while, we'll hone it down to just the ones she really needs, and just the ones that like ongoing needs, and focus in. Whereas most people with FASD have quite a range of appointments or needs or interventions, because it is a disorder that affects lots of different parts of your brain and your life and your functioning. So I think I was trying to hold this. It was a bit like that sand that the kids have, isn't it? Where I was trying to hold it, and it was kind of slipping and changing in texture all the time. And um, it was this amorphous blob of thing that I was trying to manage and handle and know and label and name. And I think in that was my journey towards, and is still a journey towards engaging with FASD, because engaging with FASD has come with engaging with loss and grief, and engaging with some very difficult feelings, and also a whole new language around blame, shame, stigma, the kind of dark underbelly of what we don't like to talk about in our feelings kind of repertoire, I think, has been
the
really
shadow side, as they call it in psychology.
shadow side. The things that a lady shouldn't be, anger and rage. We don't do as a lady.
Hatred.
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 So, all of these things that we're taught as we're growing up, perhaps in lots of different messaging that we receive, that's not acceptable and okay. So I think engaging with FASD, like you're saying, I can see how that has helped me engage with myself. My daughter has helped me engage with myself, and it's very hard for me some days to see a positive in that. Not in her, I see positives in her, but in the circumstances within which we find ourselves. But what I would say is that she and her kind of force really of life has taught me a lot about questioning and being curious and connecting more with myself without wanting to sound hippy dippy. I think that's the
Don't
reality.
worry about sounding hippy dippy here.
We're going for it with hippy dippy, aren't we? But that's what's really helped me to engage with myself more. Like, I feel like I'm more authentic. I couldn't be more authentically myself if I don't engage with FASD with her, because I deny her story, I deny mine. The two are interlinked. I can't do that. I can't live this real life, which is what I want to do, for the rest of my life, and deny that she has FASD. For me, those things are incongruent. Like, I can't do that.
So do you think being more real about FASD and sort of learning how to accept and be real with that has made you connect more with yourself and feel more authentic with yourself, or did you already have that in the voice?
Definitely it's helped. Yeah, it's really helped. And I'm not judging people that take a different path or choose to not do that, but I definitely wouldn't, as a family, I don't think we would have survived if we hadn't engaged with the fact that my daughter has a brain-based disability. I think that wouldn't have worked for us. Like, it's just not a workable set of expectations on us as a family, really. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's helped you to connect more with yourself.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that in terms of how,
well,
why?
the vulnerability is something we're working on here at HQ, and we mostly continue to be uncomfortable with it. But that doesn't mean we're not doing it. As I said the other week, we're saying things like, I need help with ... Got cue cards. I should get some cue cards. Goodness, I? I need you to, or more appropriately, I need you, full stop, apparently is a valid statement. I didn't realise that. So needing,
well, and who doesn't want to be needed / wanted?
Yeah, no,
like
I love
anyway,
being needed. Obviously, they're like, I'm doing this, aren't I? Just so I'm needed, really. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to connect with all the mess that it is, that this whole, whatever you want to call it, disorder or set of circumstances or life challenge that presents itself to us, to all of us involved in this family, in our families, in our lives, and that extends to birth families as well. Because when we're talking about this, I don't want to negate their experiences or ignore their experiences with all of this as well. They're very disconnected, disenfranchised, and marginalised. I have access to a lot more resources than a lot of birth families, and I'm not making a presumption that all birth families are working class and struggling with, lack of resources or addictions. That's a stereotype, isn't it? But what I do know is that when we speak, we're speaking about people who are disconnected on lots of different ways in lots of different places and spaces. So, and I think we see that, don't we? When I go to appointments, sorry, I am talking about vulnerability. Perhaps I've moved it to a more comfortable ground. Sorry. But when I go to appointments, and a lot in research, it comes out, and it's come out in my research again, is you feel that you have to say adopted because you don't want the judgment. So you have to say my child's adopted. And I've tried a few times just out of interest to not say adopted. And I have had some very negative responses doing that. And I thought to myself on the days when that's happened is I live with that for a glimpse in time. She lives with that for a lifetime, you know? And I mean my child's birth mother. And I think, you know, when we talk about stigma and shame in this area, that's a burden on everyone, but very much so it's perpetuated towards birth families and birth parents, isn't it? I think ongoing. Yeah. So the vulnerability of that is a whole thing, isn't it? For them and in our child's story. But yeah, the connection to myself of that authenticity and vulnerability of just trying to be a bit more real. And sometimes, like going back to the social support networks, that's meant I just haven't got it in me to make an effort with this person right now. Like that's kind of where I'm at. Or I just need to not do that. I'll just decide not to spend time with those people because it's not helpful to us.
Because they're not meeting your needs. So there's that thing as well of connecting more with your needs, isn't there? And I've started doing that more rather than a little bit more anyway than just the blanket people pleasing thing is the kind of, oh, actually, do I feel more connected or do I feel less connected and more shameful with this person? Do you know what I mean? And those kind of things. And then it's kind of, it's all about being more in touch with your own feelings and needs, isn't it? And then you can kind of connect from that place or disconnect from people that aren't meeting those so much. But I think what I've found as well is that different people can meet different needs and feelings in different ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, somebody might not be ideal for talking about FASD with, but they might be great for having a laugh or going, you know, various other things.
Yeah.
That can be great for connection in other ways. So I think I see that more now as well. That so say like, I don't know, different friends, sometimes I don't want to talk about it. No. I don't want to engage about FASD at all. I want to just escape that. And I found that in my research as well, that some people were like, well, yeah, it's really good that, you know, to be with people that get it. But also I want to be able to be myself in other ways and connect to myself, you know, in I don't know, having fun, let's say, woohoo, or doing something that's like playful or fun or talking about other things, connecting deeply, but maybe about other things that aren't, you know, related to the particular vulnerabilities about FASD or whatever.
And I think, like, yeah, I think it's like curating your connections, isn't it? Because you're living with this condition that kind of is encouraging disconnection, not encouraging it. What's the best word for it? That's where we're situated, is disconnection. That's kind of one of the big kind of drives and the big issues that we're facing is disconnection and disintegration.
It but I think disconnection a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So with all that going on and with all the things we've talked about, all those challenges like socially, yourself, your sense of self, your narrative or your connection with FASD and your child, your connection between the two of you, we haven't touched on really, have we? But I think it's about curating your connections to really reinforce the ones that are meaningful and valuable to you, and connecting to my own self, my own body, as you know, really helps me, like physically. So going to the gym, we had a really hard end of the year last year, and I deliberately went and did this after we went to the EU FASD Madrid conference and I saw flamenco. I did a flamenco class for 6 weeks, and it was really hard to get out of the house of an evening for 6 weeks, but I did it because I wanted to feel the power in my body of stamping the ground and feeling like I existed and I'm here, and that's meaningful and purposeful. And I think those body-based connections, just going on to that topic of with our children, and those connections we can establish, curate, reinforce, reintroduce, make happen, are so important that it's so hard sometimes, I find, to feel connected to my own child, and that really is I find that hurts more than a lot of other things that go on. So just taking that time after bath time to have tickle time, to have cuddle time, if she'll allow it, and to find those body-based connections where we can feel close, and connected, but in ways that feel comfortable for her and okay for her and aren't too much or too threatening. That really, I feel that's really important as well.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, for me with that, it's adjusting to different kinds of connection that are kind of in the moment as well, I suppose, like, because such a part of certainly my son's spiky profile thing is 1 minute you can be connected, next minute he's under threat and he's disconnected because of that. And he's literally attacking you, or so it's not just withdrawal, it's actually attack. So there's that kind of spiky variable thing where you can feel it's sort of so confusing and stressful. But the times where there is more connection, I suppose it's like just leaning into those when they happen as well, having a laugh or like hugging or something like that, even though the next minute it can be something different. There's that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So
what about new connections as well, because we've met not very long ago.
We have,
and then there's that thing of and then there's that thing of like, generally, like, I feel like I've met a lot of new people in the past couple of years, partly because of that thing of being more open and also sharing vulnerability more. And kind of what I find is that the more you share vulnerability in a connected way, it just other people do. It just knocks on. People then open up more and share theirs, and it's so refreshing. And yeah, like, that's a new thing. So on a positive about FASD, there's so much pain and heartache and massive struggle with it, but the connection to myself and other people has partly come out of this experience, for sure, if not largely.
I would agree. It's definitely a everyday kind of challenge and a journey. We're all on a journey, aren't we?
We're all on a journey.
Yeah, I think in what we're trying to support organisations with, especially social care at the moment, I think is a real need and a real kind of area, is that need to consider how we can support, as professionals involved in a family's life, that development of connection, that sense of ongoing sustainable connection, especially in the adoption process, with new tools, and not using maybe tools that aren't quite fitting that family and that set of circumstances, or just not even new tools, but tools that we've just adapted and taken and kind of help to fit in with our experiences and knowledge. And I think that's where professionals can feel more connected to the work they're doing, because they can actually start to see the outcomes for that family and how that is a workable I wouldn't even go as far as say a solution, but a workable intervention for that family. It's something that they feel resonates with them. They're feeding back, okay, yeah, that worked. Okay, can we try something similar, or can we do something different? So I think that for professionals, there's also that sense of disconnection with FASD, and that they haven't had the information about it. They haven't been trained up in it very often. What training they have had, they haven't had refreshers recently. So new stuff is not given to them, in terms of the development in the field and in the science and the brain science. And they feel quite, quite in some ways there's that shame they feel in that, gosh, this is such a thing that I should know about that I don't know about. And
I think
I
that's
think that's
huge.
what
I
we're
think
trying
that
to
could be
address.
huge.
Yeah.
Definitely that, and that thing of, oh, and I haven't known about this in the past. And what if, I've been getting things wrong or
definitely. I've felt
missing
that.
things because of that. That shame is huge for all of us in different contexts, including professionals, isn't it?
When I look back at my case work and I think of individuals that I've worked with in the past as an adult social worker, and it's usually people where I think, gosh, they had such intractable and complex problems. And perhaps when I was working on the wards of the acute hospital, people that have got housing issues, perhaps addiction issues, and I'm not labelling everyone with FASD in this regard, but obviously they've come to social care because they've got really serious, difficult, complex issues anyway, let alone having FASD. They can't be discharged because they've got no house to go to. The relationships with the family have broken down. They've got an inappropriate boyfriend, and all of this going on. And I think, oh gosh, that was somebody with FASD. Like I can pretty much say that there was intergenerational issues going on when parents visit the ward. I would think, oh gosh, this family's really struggling and there's a lot of chaotic stuff going on here. And I think, did I do my best by that family? No, probably not. But with what I had at the time, I did what I could. And we're really trying to support professionals to feel more empowered in their own practice. And like they've got a set of tools in their kit that that they can refer to. We're not saying that everything works for everyone because you can't say that with anything, but we can definitely say that it's more useful and more workable, perhaps, than what they're already doing, and that they can feel that they've got a knowledge base around that to call upon, that's relevant today.
And I wonder if, in terms of connection, that means potentially that they feel more connected to the people they're working with. Certainly through understanding them better and then being able to kind of empathize and provide interventions that might be more appropriate and stuff. That's going to serve connection on a professional level as well, presumably.
If we're talking about relationship-based practice, that's it, isn't it? The relationship is the intervention, but how can you feel connected and have a relationship with somebody that you're working with in a professional manner when they're the one that's telling you everything you need to know and educating you, and you don't know anything, and you don't know this language, and you don't know these facts, and you feeling quite kind of disempowered and like you've got nothing to give? It's not reciprocal. So how can we kind of right that balance a bit so that there is a useful relationship both ways? You're giving and you're taking, and that, of course, these people are involved in their care and their decisions, and you're listening to them, but you've also brought stuff to offer, and that is within your empathy, like you say, and your attitude and the language you use from the minute you walk in their house, and being informed, FASD informed, from the minute you walk in their house, in the same way as you're informed of other areas of practice that are really relevant. So I think that's what we're trying to offer social care specifically at this moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's made me think more about the connection in a professional context and how easy it would be to feel very disconnected if you not really understanding. There's something, that sense, isn't there, that parents talk about as well and caregivers talk about, that kind of something's not quite right here. I'm not quite getting this. It's not quite landing.
What I'm trying just isn't working.
Yeah, what I'm trying just isn't
working. I've been
on
all the courses, I've read all the books, and it's still not working. What's wrong with me? If you're a social care professional, we'd really love to hear from you. We're happy to have a chat about what your training needs for your organisation might be. And also, if you're an adoptive parent, a caregiver, foster caregiver, and you feel like this kind of training and support would really suit you, please get in touch with your social worker, and we're more than happy to chat with them and look at what the needs are. We try and make things quite bespoke and tailored depending on where the organisation's at. And we know funding can be a real resource issue as well, so we're happy to work towards that as well. So if you do know and you think this could be real, just share the video or the blog that goes with this, and we're more than happy to chat further.
And I think on that as well, it's wherever you are in the journey, because I think people might feel like they need a diagnosis or they need to be absolutely definite that they're dealing with FASD, and it's anywhere on the journey, even if it's like early days of suspecting or or dealing with ADHD and autism as well, and then maybe FASD might be in the mix, or even if it's just ADHD and autism at this point, you know, that's still something.
Yeah, we've got the whole range of people on our training course at the moment, haven't we? We've got parents that are really unclear as to whether their child has FASD, and parents that have had. We've also supported people with diagnosis for 10 years or more, haven't we? So yeah.
And please do share as well, because it can really help people just to know that they're not alone. And it's as simple as that, really, that connection of just not feeling like they're alone in this
we love to
experience.
Chat and connect. Yeah, we love to chat and connect with different people in this field as well, don't we? We've had quite a few really interesting discussions. So yeah, if you want to get in touch and have a chat, that'd be lovely.